We finished the visit and went to the bus station when it started to rain, so we went to sit in a building under construction to avoid the rain. The explosion happened near the building. People who were near to me were all killed, and I survived.
Saturday's attack appears to be one of the deadliest in the capital for several years. Syrian government forces have managed to keep the intense fighting beyond the city limits of Damascus throughout much of the war. 4 years ago, 61 people were killed in the capital in bombings in a wealthy neighborhood near the Russian embassy. And in January, 10 people were killed, 8 of them soldiers, after a former affiliate of al-Qaeda bombed a heavily fortified area in Damascus. Fatah el-Sham said it was trying to target Russian military advisors supporting Syrian troops. No one has claimed responsibility for Saturday's attack. Shia fighters from Iraq, Iran, and Hezbollah have been fighting alongside Syrian government forces. And Shia shrines and neighborhoods have been attacked by al-Qaeda and ISIL during the war, which started 6 years ago this Wednesday. Natasha Ghanem, Al Jazeera, Gaziantep, Turkey.
Iraqis who have escaped the battle for Mosul have told Al Jazeera how being ruled by ISIL has destroyed their lives.
These years, but thank God it's over.
People are fleeing Mosul in their thousands, and there are mixed emotions here.
Will you be able to go back to Mosul?
Well, Mosul is very damaged. It's very damaged. The life and the self is very damaged.
What goes through their minds as they wait? They're let off the buses one by one and given a quick security check.
The new arrivals are being registered, and what this means is that they are now officially homeless. The people have just arrived, at least 6 or 7 buses, and the stories that we're hearing are all of people saying they've had no food. Many don't know where their family members are. It is an unimaginable scale of human tragedy, what is unfolding here.
Women and children are welcomed inside this tent. Small comforts for a colossal ordeal. We ask what life was like the last few years. Torturous, she tells us. Slowly, a picture emerges of living under ISIL rule.
They killed children and adults for no reason. They grabbed children like my son and asked them, "Why aren't you going to the mosque? If he wants to pray, he can pray at home. We are all Muslims. We are all slaves of God. Why does he have to go to the mosque?" That's ISIL.
What sin have these children committed to lose 3 years of their lives? My children were top of their class. Now they have lost 3 years. A whole generation has been destroyed. An entire generation.
It's easy to shed the superficial constrictions imposed by ISIL. Black face covering niqabs, which women were forced to wear, give way to color.
My wife lost. My people lost. My house is damaged.
It's the emotional scars, which will be much harder to fix. Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera, Chamakor camp, east of Mosul.
An intruder has managed to climb over a fence at the White House and make it onto the premises, while US President Donald Trump was inside. The man breached security carrying a backpack before Secret Service officers arrested him. From Washington, D.C., is Rob Reynolds.
The intruder scaled the tall wrought iron fence surrounding the White House late Friday night. He was carrying a backpack when he was apprehended by Secret Service officers. That backpack was examined and found to contain no weapons or any hazardous materials. President Donald Trump was in the White House at the time and was informed of the incident shortly after it occurred. Now, the man has not been identified as of now, but according to a report from the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police, he said that he had an appointment to see the president, that he was a friend of President Trump's. The man was also carrying a driver's license from the state of California. He was, of course, placed under arrest. Now, there have been about half a dozen notable instances of White House intrusions over the past several years. One that was particularly serious occurred in 2014 when a Texas man who was carrying a knife actually made it into the front entrance of the White House before being apprehended. And that incident led to a thorough review of Secret Service security procedures and White House security in general.
Time for a short break here. When we come back, South Korea's president is officially removed from office, but her critics say that's not enough. And we look at the ambitious project in Brazil to quench the thirst of regions suffering from drought. More on that. Stay with us.
Weather updates brought to you by Qatar Airways. Going places together.
A look at weather conditions in the Levant and the Middle East now. As we start in Levant, eastern air is looking generally fine. We've got low pressure, though, on the eastern side of the Mediterranean. As that moves in, ahead of it, we've got warm air being pulled up from the south, so 22 degrees in Beirut. But as we move on through into Monday, that low-pressure system will be heading further east, and therefore we will get a change in wind direction, so just 16 degrees in Beirut at that stage. And the Kawabi range spreading in across northern parts of Iraq, even further south and on into Iran. As we head towards the south, well, we've got largely fine conditions across the Arabian Peninsula, definitely warming up now, 29 degrees in Doha, 36 in Mecca. But that weather system further towards the north will engender sort of weakness in the flow. As a result, we're going to see more in the way of cloud, perhaps even the odd spot of rain across northern parts of Saudi Arabia and maybe in towards the Gulf states, but nothing of any significance as such. Let's head across into southern portions of Africa, where for much of the region it's looking fine, certainly South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and indeed Zimbabwe too, looking at largely fine conditions. Still some showers across Zambia, into Mozambique and Tanzania, and Madagascar still picking up one or two showers. But generally, as we head on through into Monday, it's looking fine. Should be a nice day in Durban. Highs here of 24.
Weather updates brought to you by Qatar Airways. Going places together.
On the next episode of The Cure, more real solutions.
Ata Amadou, good to see you. Nice to meet you.
From simple but impactful intervention.
No matter what the temperature is, this vaccine will continue to work.
To discovering the cause of a silent epidemic.
For almost 2 decades, the cause of this disease remained a mystery.
Real doctors, real stories, real solutions. The Cure, at this time.
Welcome back. A quick reminder of the top stories here this hour. Turkey's Prime Minister is vowing a strong response to what he called the unacceptable treatment of 2 ministers by the Netherlands. The family minister was deported to stop her addressing a crowd about a referendum in Turkey to expand the president's powers. Dutch police used water cannon and batons to disperse angry crowds outside the Turkish consulate in Rotterdam. The city's mayor had issued an emergency order to break up the protests amid fears they could become a riot. And 2 blasts near the center of Syria's capital, Damascus, have killed at least 59 people and injured more than 120. The attacks targeted Shia pilgrims who were heading to an ancient cemetery. Now, critics of South Korea's former president Park Geun-hye are calling for her arrest. Rival rallies were held in Seoul for a second day, both for and against her dismissal from office. She was forced out on Friday after judges upheld Parliament's decision to impeach her. She's been implicated in a corruption scandal involving alleged bribes paid by major companies. An election to choose a new president is expected in May. Rob McBride has the latest from Seoul.
The mass weekend protests that have come to characterize this constitutional crisis happening on the streets of Seoul once more, with both pro